Hello, welcome in. Get out the cold. Remember, shoes off at the front door. Get some snacks and come take a seat and join us here in the Music Shack with both
Ray.
and Jack. And we're back with an album breakdown. Du-du-du-du.
Yay!
Woo! This is on Lizzy McAlpine's Older, which just released 2 weeks ago now, so the 5th of April. That's where my math thingy goes wrong. We just done an episode 2 weeks ago where I introduced Ray to like Lizzy McAlpine as a whole, as like a larger discography, and it was a really fun video. So if you want to go check it out before you watch this, or if you want to watch this and then watch that, it was really fun. It was a fun video to do. But we're back, and we are now breaking down this album a little bit later than it's coming after it's come out. But we've had a busy month. It's a really busy month this month. You know what? It's fine. We love new music. We love these artists. So I think the way we're gonna do this is just run through track by track, after sort of giving like a meaning of the album, and then at the end we'll talk about sort of people's opinions, our thoughts, and yeah, like just how we found it in general.
I am excited to talk about this. Obviously, like, this is kind of like I've been re-listening to some of the songs that you showed me last time, Jack.
Yeah.
But this is kind of like my first time listening to a Lizzy album in full, and it was interesting. Like, I know it's different from her previous work, but it's really interesting. So I'm not gonna spoil my opinions, but we'll probably get into it. I think we'll start with talking about each track. We'll quickly go through each track, some of our favorite highlights of each, and then we'll talk about the album as a whole at the end, like we usually do for these videos. So Lizzy's Older, it's 14 tracks. It starts with The Elevator, which is track 1, and it's a pretty slow, like, it's a pretty short track, but it's such an interesting song, and I think, like, personally, like, a beautiful way to start an album. And I don't know, Jack, what are your thoughts on the opening track to this album?
No, like pretty much what you said. I think it establishes like the theme of the album extremely well. It sort of brings in like kind of it instantly shows you the levels of production that this album has, because the production levels on this album are like through the roof, like stunning. But there's something. So I don't think you've ever heard Dear Evan Hansen. It's a musical, and it's there's an intro in the song Only Us, and the intro to this song sounds like that song, and I can't get it out of my head because Lizzy is like a theatre kid, and I'm like, is this a coincidence? It probably is a coincidence, but it just sounds crazy like it. And that's been in my head every single time it comes on. I'm like, oh, is this Dear? And I'm like, no, this is the start of Older. But it's a really, it genuinely, it does a good job at like establishing the album, and kind of gives us an idea of what it's going to be about. And I think a good album like opener has to do that. And it pretty much just like, does that extremely well. The chorus is beautiful, and I think this is hard because it's a short kind of one, but it does a really good job.
I think it's so interesting, like, some of, like, the way that it is, like, it's so short, and like there's not so many lyrics, and it was so weird for me to like turn on the album and like how quiet this was. Like, I literally have in my notes very quiet. But it's obviously a production choice, right? And like, and then like it builds into that with like the elevator music. Obviously, it's called The Elevator. And then the lyrics where they're like, it wasn't slow, it happened fast, and like it's almost like the perfect way to introduce this story that she's about to tell. And she's just like, this is like the calm before the storm. And then when she's like, can we stay like this forever? Like, I don't want any of the bad stuff that's about to happen that we're about to hear about to happen, and I wish we could just like stay in this moment with like before this album forever, because like this like story I'm about to tell you kind of sucks.
No, it's like the perfect. It's like it draws you in so well, right? And if the story does kind of suck, and, not like suck
no,
as
like,
in like a bad way, but like the topics it touches on are really like a lot.
Yeah.
But it's
not that we don't like it. That
no,
like it's a shitty thing that she went through.
God, we're getting ourselves cancelled in the first song. That's good.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think that's it's interesting. So then the next track, it goes into Come Down Soon, which is the second track. It is, 3 minutes. I thought I really liked this song. Like it was interesting for me. Like it was fun, which like the sound of it was fun. I think like the simple guitar almost, like, you have to tell me if I'm like wrong about this, but like it reminded me a little bit of like her older music that you showed me. But maybe I'm like, I don't have enough to go off of to say that.
I'd say it sounds like 5 seconds flat a bit.
Okay,
in terms of like the way the story's told, like just the way she sort of like comes at it. I think like he leans out the window of the car, it rolls away, he says, "Do you come here often?" Like that sort of like, see where she's talking about like what he's saying. I think the sort of tempo and like the production on this song, it does sound more like it gives me 5 seconds flat vibes. But it's originally it was written and like done without a band, and it just wasn't coming, like, and it wasn't kind of making sense, and it just wasn't like working as a song. But then with the band behind it, like, then she sort of thought it was like a viable song to put on the album. So it's like, I'd love to hear what it sounds like without it, because the production on this is incredible again. But the thing is, Lizzie has a lot of like production credits on this album, because I'll go into it a little bit more at the end, but a lot of this was like done on her own initially, and then some of the songs are done like kept that way. But obviously I'll tell you that you all probably know, but we'll go into it more later on at the end of this. But that's kind of the vibes. Yeah, I think what you're saying is correct, and it pretty much just obviously tells us like a story of like, or like describes her romantic experiences with someone who she like, well, she's sure like it probably won't go anywhere, won't last at all. But I don't know, it gives me very 5 seconds flat vibes, and now that you've said that, it's kind of in my head, because I didn't sort of pick up on that in the past. But maybe I'm wrong here, but I think from the sound of it at least gives me that vibe, while also sticking to like the theme of older and everything.
It's interesting that you say that, because personally, like, I think the production is something I'm going to come back to a lot on this record, because I like it. Like, it's some of the most incredible production I have heard on some of the songs. But this is one of those songs where, to me, the production falls flat a little bit. Like, it almost feels a little underdeveloped. And, like, I think that you're right when you say it could fit better on another album, whereas this album is like almost like like the songs that stand out to me, at least, are like produced in a way that are very different to what this song is, so it almost doesn't fit, which makes it seem underproduced.
See, I think that comes into play with how it was originally done. I think I'd love to see how much was kept, like how much of the original production Lizzie done was kept, and how much like is being done afterwards, after the band was involved in everything, because she said obviously it wasn't coming together. But I get what you're saying, and there is songs where it does not sort of feel flat production wise, but it doesn't. This is such a heavy, not heavy, don't know how to word it. The production on this is like done so well that it I think if you notice any little bits of any flat bits, it's like very blaring and obvious.
True.
But I think I wonder if I've not looked at the production credits for every single song, so I wonder as we're going through these if the songs that maybe we feel like that are like initially written and initially produced by Lizzie, then done obviously with like that in mind, and then obviously produced further. But that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I like hearing that like background. I didn't know that, so it definitely gives it a lot of context. Um, okay, well the next track is Like It Tends to Do, which you know, we've been going on this kind of track of talking about like being with somebody who you might maybe feel like you're in the wrong place, which is kind of what Come Down Soon was about. And then this kind of like deviates from the story a little bit, but it describes the wonder of how you'd interact with the next partner when seeing them after a long time of separation. Um this is one of my favorite songs on the album. I'm going to be honest. Like I really really like the production, and I like her vocals on this are like really soft,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, which I really like, and it makes you feel the music a lot. So even if it's not something that you relate to or whatever, you're taken into her world a little bit, and I like that a lot about this song.
It's yeah. I don't know. You do such a good job at describing these. So when I come after, I'm just like, yeah, yeah. And this is the standout lyrics on this song. Since I can't really add super. I can't add a lot really after that. I just think the writing on this is good because it does a really good job at describing. It does a really good job at like making you feel like you're part of this awkward, like, relation, like stage of the relationship. Like I don't know where we stand anymore. We have cordial conversations. Don't know why I feel like, oh, I can't speak. Don't know why I feel I'm faking something. I don't know what to do with my hands anymore. It feels exactly like it was, but at the same time it feels so different. Like we've all been there, and my God, that is like perfect. Like it doesn't need a lot of words to describe it, but it's like even just down to like how you don't know what to do with your hands, like you just get so anxious, and like you shouldn't be this, like it's like you genuinely forget how to be a human when you're like kind of in a situation with someone. It's so different. Like I don't know what it is. Like there's something so different with being like, say you know someone really well and then you don't talk, and then he's like not so much fallout, but he's just like whatever, right? You don't, and then you meet up with them like whatever time in advance. Like I don't think you forget to be a human as much as you do when you like meet up with like a past loved one. Like it genuinely, like you it does something to you, and it makes you feel so like out of world, and like sort of like you just genuinely don't know how to act, because then you're like, am I being really weird? Am I acting like, are they going to pick up on me? Am I like acting not like myself? And then you just kind of question it all, and I think this is kind of summed up in this whole like genuinely just this couple of lyrics does a really good job of it. Good job with it. And this was written around the time that 5 Seconds Flat was getting finished written up as well.
Okay, interesting. I feel like it's interesting, like in the sense of the story, like where this fits in, like the story of the album, because like if I think about, like, we're gonna get to Movie Star, but like what she talks about in Movie Star and then what she talked about in the track before this and Come Down Soon, this is almost like a weird thing to put in the middle, but it could be like it could be like her looking back at also like what the relationship used to be like during like whatever honeymoon phase as well. But it could definitely, like, I feel like this song could be interpreted in a lot of different ways, which is good too.
Yeah, like the album follows like a relationship that's like constantly like going breaking and going and breaking. So it's like, is this looking back at sort of one of the times where they were sort of on the break, or is this like looking back at a past relationship? But she did say, so obviously it was written around 5 Seconds Flat, but she said like it was like her favorite song she'd ever written, and it felt like some of her best songwriting, but she thought it deserved its own place on a different project. So this could have been 5 Seconds Flat worthy, not worthy, but
Yeah.
like could have been on 5 Seconds Flat, but she wanted to move it here. So it makes me think is like this coming from the same place that 5 Seconds Flat is, like story wise and written, and it's just maybe that's maybe where she's like looking back towards, and I'd just
Makes
love to
sense.
see what it does like fit into the story, because it is, I get what you mean, like fully. I would love to see a timeline because I think it'd be really cool. But the writing, the lyricism is beautiful on here, and sonically it's beautiful as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next song. Movie Star. I want to hear what you have to say about this first, because I have notes on this song and I don't want to start negatively. So you go
Oh
first.
no! Oh, don't say negatively. Oh, I was gonna say actually, like I find this song is one of those songs where it comes on and you just like kind of bob your head, and like because
Yeah.
just like the percussion in the background, like the production and overall is like, it's not like, not saying it's like the
Mhm.
most like inventive thing ever, but it's like the way it's all mashed together and it just works, and it's like a bop. Oh god, I'm scared. I feel like I'm talking and like you're gonna say something really horrible about it. No,
No,
I'm just
no,
kidding.
no,
I'm not gonna.
it's not. It's not. I don't have like bad things to say about this album, but it's not like 10 out of 10 for me personally. But um, the only thing about the song, I mean, that I want to say is like it doesn't feel fleshed out. Like it doesn't
Okay.
feel like a song. I mean, it is a minute and a half, right? And like the elevator was a minute and a half, but I honestly thought it was okay because it felt fully produced
Mhm.
and it was an opener to the album. But when you have a minute and a half track that's like not really an interlude, like it's 4 minutes, it's 4 tracks in, it's not really an interlude, and then you listen to the track and it feels like it's very guitar heavy. It almost reminds me of Apple Pie, like the way that
Mhm.
it sounds
Yeah.
with the guitar, which I like the sound of. I ranked that first on my ranking, but
Spoilers.
like
Damn. I'm
sorry,
just kidding. I'm
spoilers.
just kidding.
I do like the song. I'm not going to say that I don't, but I just, if this was a full song, I think I would like it a lot better than I do. And I think I'm saying I don't like it because I see how much potential that this had if it was fully produced and, it wasn't just like a quick, like, verse, chorus, verse kind of song. I'm just like, it flies over my head and I go, oh, what just happened? you know? And I really like the lyrics of this song. Like, I think I didn't really realize what she was talking about on first listen. I was like, what is she saying? Like, I
Yeah.
don't get it. But, like, the actual fact of what this song is about and how it leads to the further tracks in the album is like she's almost being gaslit to like she's explaining the fact that she's being gaslit by her partner to be n- like this is how an abusive relationship starts, right? Like you're being told so many nice things and like essentially being coerced into thinking like I'm super special and important. So like I when like shitty things happen in the future, it just makes it harder to leave. Um and like it's really interesting the way that she puts that in the lyrics. So I like that a lot about this track, but I just think it could have been better if it was like a full song.
Well, I have news for you.
What?
So Lizzie said, I wrote this with my friend Olivia Barton, who opened for me on my last tour. We initially had a wild outro that was full of electric guitars and big drums, but when we got into the
Oh my
studio
god.
with the band, we realised the elevator had a similar arc and sound, so we cut the whole outro out of this one, and now it's just short, simple song. I think it's so much better this way.
So the thing is like I think I would have liked it better if it was like that, which is like bad. I feel bad for saying that now because clearly that was like an intentional decision on her to not have that in this song, and now I'm shitting on it, so I'm sorry.
Look, everybody's allowed their opinion, and I think songs, like, we'll all look for different things in songs, and that's just something that you thought would have been like something that would have made you want to listen to it more, and that's so okay. Like, obviously they had the same thought initially, like they done it, so like
Yeah.
they wanted they originally wrote that in and like done that with it, but they just, I guess she just wasn't feeling it, and like I just like I think the lyrics do a lot of really good talking here, about you saying like you didn't really not understand it, but you didn't like pick up on what she was saying, and I was the same, and I think when you go back and look at it, you do realize like how she's written this into lyrics really well, and I just got a couple like obviously lyrics. I want to change, I want to grow, but it's physically impossible to stand here and not say that I love you even if I don't. So it's like, again, like down the story of like when you're told so much that that also ties in with like, who am I to you, who am I to myself, what are you changing about me, I feel like a movie star but it's getting old, being famous for someone. But it's like they big you up so much, and like you start to be like initially, like you in the first verse I said, it's like to stand here and not say that I love you even if I don't. So it's like you sort of feel like you owe them that because of how much like they are like saying about you and like bigging you up and stuff. And then it's like the whole movie star, like you feel so like famous to them because they keep like, again, bigging you up or like constantly like making you feel like they're kind of not flaming you or gaslighting you, but they kind of are at the same time, right, into something that you possibly like aren't, and then that sort of leads you to question who you are as yourself, and like how big am I in your head, like am I like, they've built you up so much in their head and everything, and they've built you up so much to yourself, like I just think the writing on this is like, sometimes maybe it feels a little flat in some areas, but it's like moments like this like really shine through, like a star, you could say, like a movie star. Wow.
Yeah. Well, with that, the next track is All Falls Down. And I think that this is such an interesting song lyrically. Just in terms of the actual words, like it almost reflects like this change in mood a little bit. Like it's the start of the change in mood in the album, where like she's starting to realize, hence the title is kind of like suggesting as well, but like she is suggesting that like this is her starting to realize like, oh, this person isn't really right for me, you know? And I should probably leave. And I think it's interesting to me because like there's a lot of like, there's like a simple like jazz style in the production of this, like with like the saxophone and stuff, if that makes sense, which is almost like, I really like the melody of this song, but it's so weird. It's such an interesting production choice for me, and I can't describe it, and I'm sure Jack has some thing that she talks about to describe it, but like it's just a change in production from the rest of the album, and then it also represents this change in mood, but I think that's like such an interesting way to do it. But I don't know why she chose like the jazz kind of vibe, but I'm interested to know your thoughts.
So yeah, like the lyrics are like, the lyrics are not so much like sad, but they're like, you think this would fit better with like not like a like a slower beat, right? Like a slower like ballad type style. But so we all know Lizzie's experience with touring, and how obviously in this song she mentions 22 is a panic attack, I can't stop the time from moving and I can never get it back. 22, like the whole panic attack stuff, like the whole tour, like how she feels around touring, is like, this is kind of how she feels, right? So what she wrote about this song was, I wrote this one when I was on tour, which is weird. I never write songs on the road because I hate touring, so I am usually pretty miserable and uninspired, but I guess this was different because I was writing about that feeling. Originally it was a slow and ballad day because that's what the lyrics feel like, but it evolved into this fun upbeat number. I love that juxtaposition. So it did originally sound slower, but I really like it I think like I'd obviously
Yeah.
love to hear it originally when it was slower, just to like get a feel for it. But I love how it's like sort of been made. It like sort of kind of it like really envisions how she was feeling, because obviously the song and the lyrics are like down and like slower, and they should be like fit with a slower beat, but it's also like she feels really inspired to write this song, so at the same time she's getting this surge of energy. So the song and the the upbeat like of it is like kind of how her energy is towards the song. I feel like it definitely wasn't, but this is what I take from it. Is like obviously she was feeling really thingy into this, so she's pretty much taken like what she's written and like taking how she was feeling at the time, and like taking away the fact that she usually feels like really uninspired and like slow and everything, and she's like put like a new life into it, and I think that's really cool. um and I think this is also another one where you might not know sort of like what she's talking about in it, but it's like one of those songs that like I think everybody, you could listen to it and like just have like a sort of like understanding and respect that it's just like a wee head bobber. But it is like, I think the lyrics are go into more, and like what she's writing about is interesting in the way she's done it, and how she's originally done the songs differently, and she's went back and done it in a whole new way is like really interesting. And we spoke about Lizzie, how she writes in the moment, like she tries to like produce music with how she's feeling at that moment in time. So I really wonder if these songs she obviously talks about previously being like produced before were like at a completely different time, and now she's revisiting some of these songs that she's like, no, this needs like a re-up, or like this needs like a whole new change to it.
Mhm. Yeah. It's so interesting. And like I love hearing about the process to like get to these tracks. Like it gives a lot of context to the album, which I think when I listened to it, like I was missing, so it's good to know. Um the next song is Staying, which is track 6. Personally, this is one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
It's so I love the outro on this song. So like the concept of this song, she's kind of like almost spiraling into like being like I want to leave, but like she feels trapped. Like that's the sense of the song, and but like she's just kind of spiraling about it in this song. And then like in the outro, like this is so weird. The production is absolutely stunning, especially in the outro. Like I think that's why I like this song so much. It encapsulates you. And then when she's singing like the O's at the end with the production, like you literally feel like you're spinning. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's insane like what this song makes you feel. And like it's definitely one of my top tracks because of that. Like I've never heard production this amazing. So that's all I have to say.
It makes me laugh because every time you mention something, she speaks about it.
I promise I didn't pre-read any of this. It's just like it's just like my thoughts. I'm sorry.
So she says here, this was supposed to be a really short interlude, and it had this outro section that I had written that my old producer suggested we cut. But later, when I took it to the band and they jammed on it, I was like, you know what? You know what? I'm actually going to add that outro back in, and I think that it could be cool. And now it's my favorite part of my of the song. I'm so glad I decided to do that, and that I didn't let the producer's opinion sway my way. I don't know how you're doing this, but it's literally so funny.
I'm not. That's so funny.
But it does feel like that. Like it genuinely feels like you're spinning. Like it's
Yeah.
so weird how you like portray that in a song, but it does. And
Like
like
you can feel like even if you've never been through a situation like that, you can literally feel what she's feeling when you're listening to that song.
yeah, and the lyrics are quite heavy on this as well. Not heavy. I keep saying words that I don't really mean. It's like the lyrics on this are really interesting. Because it's like in verse 2 she says, maybe I would be okay if I let this go forever, send it into space and watch the planets turn. And it illustrates the picture that like even if she does let them go, the world won't stop and her life will obviously go on. But it's like it's like it, her imagery is like stunning, and I feel like I've just sat here and been like, I love Lizzie. I do love Lizzie. I think her art's really awesome, but her imagery is really incredible, and that verse and that lyric really stuck out. And yeah, I just love how you keep getting all these like topics about like outros and like production and things right, and it's just, I love it. It's like she's fully listening to what you're saying, but like, no, actually, I thought this.
Help. But it's like you prepared for everything I was going to say, and then you had like, well, actually.
yeah, I need my glasses. I need to like hold the middle of my glasses. Like, well, actually, no. It's so funny.
Yeah, so moving on to the next track is I Guess. This was a single, right? It has a different picture on Genius, so I'm assuming it's a single. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be interesting to hear like why she chose this as a single. But I think this song is good. I think it's it's a good way, like, just this ends like the first side of the album, and I actually had to look up what the sides of the album were to this, because I was actually really curious, because I think that this almost like is a good ending to like the first half of this story. So it's really cool the way that it's all been done, like almost very intentionally. It's like it's like the end of her being like, I hate this relationship, I don't feel right here, and the start of like, oh shit, like this, all of this bad shit is happening and I like feel trapped, kind of. And it's like that, this song almost feels like a transition, I guess. And I like that. I think it's good, but I'm interested like why she chose this as a single.
That I don't have for you.
Oh.
But I do have why she released it on March 13th.
Okay.
So obviously I spoke to you in the video the other day about how obviously her dad sadly passed away. And this will be coming up in topic a little bit later on for one of the songs. But he passed away on the 13th of March. This song was released on the 13th of March. That was obviously 2020 he passed away on. But she did say that I wanted to put it out today because today is the 4th-year anniversary of losing my dad, and I just thought that would be a good way to honour that. So it's obviously we've had a bit more time to well, I have, you've not listened to it before this, but like I think what you've said is good. It's like, it's a good like middle track, because it is like it's coming to terms with like the realization of what's been happening, and like it's good. It's a good way of like acknowledging like what the album's been about, and like sort of gives you like a tee off of what like it's gonna be about, like, and like the rest of the album's gonna be about. I think, I don't know. It's this one's an interesting one. Like, I guess is like sonically is beautiful. I don't know. I think I say that a lot about this album, but it is because this album and the way these tracks are like really massed out, and like like I really like slow music, and I think and obviously with like the way this is really good as well. But I just love it. I don't really have too much to say about the lyrics. I think I just love the sound of it, and I think it's just a good like middle of the album. Like, I know there's 14 tracks and this is 7, so it is the middle.
It is the middle, and it feels like that. I think a lot of modern day albums, we talk about this a lot on the podcast, but they just kind of throw songs together.
Yeah.
But this feels so intentional, and it makes it feel like a piece that's cohesive, and I feel like it makes an album 10 times better for me when I'm like thinking about it as a whole, like so I think that's great, and I think like the placement of the song is totally right. Moving on to the next track, Drunk Running. Jack introduced me to this song as the first track I heard off of this album. he introduced me in the last video. So if you want to see my reaction to that song, check out the last video, the last Lizzy video, not the last video. My opinion about it is still the same. Like, the production on this is incredible. It makes you feel the music. In context of the album, this song makes sense. Where it's placed, it's like the first chapter, the second half of the story also makes sense. It's like a really big change in mood versus like the whole like it almost the next 3 tracks are very heavy topics, like this track included, and like they talk about like domestic violence and abuse and alcoholism and all of those things, and it almost just feels like everything that happened before in this record is like leading up to these 3 tracks, and they're incredible. Like, you can really feel it.
Yeah. This is it's interesting because obviously you've listened to this now 3 times, or like maybe once off of, like, I don't know how many times if you've listened to it again after we stopped, and then obviously you've listened to the album twice, but it's like interesting to see like how you felt it fit into the story, like of the album. Like it's good to hear, because I kind of like chucked you in at the deep end with like one of the like the middle songs of the album, and without any context of like her whole discography, as well as just like any like about this album in general. But no, this is my favorite song off the album. I think so. I think that still stands. I just love God, I'm gonna sound like a broken record. Sonically, I love it. I love what it talks about. And I love the way it goes about such a sensitive topic. And it, again, we've been over like sort of what it is about, but it tells the story perfectly. Obviously, I've got the description here, but we spoke about this in the first initial like introduction to the song. But it navigates obviously the emotional turmoil of a relationship plagued by addiction, underscored by themes of love, regret, and harsh realities of enabling behaviour. It tells the story of someone grappling with the consequences of their partner's substance abuse, recognising their own role in it's going to happen again, perpetuating, I don't know, the cycle of yearning for a chance to rewind and rectify their mistakes. For anybody, I couldn't get that the last time we spoke about this, but it does like such a good job at doing that. Like we spoke about how the backwards I love yous are sort of like, it's like that spiral starting again, and it's like you go from being confused and like heart that you've been lied to, and then you're like questioning like why, like nobody has stopped you, like why do you let this happen to yourself, and then like you then are like starting to blame yourself, and you're like why, like what if it was all my fault, like, and then you like fully bring yourself into a hole, and then it's like you blame yourself, and then obviously it repeats, and it's like that because that's kind of the process of it. So she wrote for this, like, what did Lizzy have to say about it? And she said, I wrote this song after I was out of the relationship that this album is about, and pretty far removed from it. I went out with my friends one night, and my ex was there. We were at a bar, and he was ignoring me and just looked really miserable. I was like, damn, this is hard to watch. The song is about that experience and about our time before that. I ordered the tracks in a very specific way to carry you from the beginning of the relationship into the second half, where things start to devolve and get really toxic. Drunk Running is the beginning of the toxic chapter. The bridge is kind of like, oh God, what if I did this to you? What if I made you this way? I'm sorry for staying when I should have left. It's me realising my part that I played. So again,
interesting,
very like thought about placement, and every track is in a really specific place, and we've seen that so far. I think, except from Movie Star, but that's because I think it's reminiscing, because it's sort of maybe not reminiscing over someone previous, but that's when it was originally written, so you do get that vibe from it. But yeah, this is probably my favourite track on it. But this does get like really heavy, so just
Yeah,
please,
like
like,
if
yeah.
you if you've ever like struggled with like domestic abuse or any like kind of relationship abuse, I would like skip a little bit forward over the next couple tracks because um it's definitely going into some really deep topics in the next few songs. But I mean, if you've listened to the album, you know, yeah.
Yeah, and I just hope you're all right.
Yeah.
If you have listened to it.
So the next track is personally like one of my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I there's something about this track lyrically that is so beautiful to me. Like obviously like it's a really 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 challenging topic. It this song um is about it's pretty much about like Lizzie being in an abusive relationship and the symbol of the broken glass is like the weapon being used against Lizzie in the relationship, whether emotionally or physically. It's up to interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's so interesting. I think one of my favorite lines on the album is it might seem like I love you, but I just don't want to be alone. And like it's such an interesting thing because it describes so perfectly like why she stayed in this relationship from the start, which we look back at like Calm Down Soon and the elevator where she's kind of thinking about how perfect this relationship is and there's senses of doubt, but she's almost like, you know, I dreamed of love and this is like what it is kind of thing. And because of like the way society just like talks about romance, you can cling to something like that, like just somebody being there, um even if it's not love, and then it ends up with stuff like this sometimes, and that really sucks. I think it's just like incredible how well this is written, and it's not a topic that's really sung about a lot in music. And I know for like people going through shit like this song probably means like the world to them. So it's good that Lizzie was able to like really like make such a song that like I feel like encapsulates it. I've never gone through something like this personally, so I can't say exactly like this or that if it's like, but to me like it feels like a really good representation lyrically, so I really like it.
Yeah. The initial thought I think I had when I heard this was like I had a really strong like feeling that this, not feeling, but when I heard it I was like, this could also be like a really heavy metaphor for like word, like verbal abuse as well. Not that it like, because it is obviously conveying like physical harm as well
I think
stuff,
it
but
can be interpreted either way,
yeah, well,
to
it
be
was just
honest.
because of like the way she or the way she like puts the imagery of like broken glass on the table, pick it up, hold it to your throat. Like words can also
Yeah.
be so damaging, and like so like you hold words sometimes as well, like so close to your chest at the same time. So it's like, I think words are also part of like abuse, right? Verbal abuse, and like it still comes under like the whole topic of like what this song is about. So I think it just shows. I think that initial like broken glass on the table, pick it up, hold it to your throat, is like such a good opener because it's like direct, and it's like, holy shit, okay, right, we're in it. Like it gives you no time to like understand the
Mhm.
song. Like you're chucked into it like head first. And um I just think obviously this song, it does go like quite deep, but it it does a really good job at the imagery of it. I don't have really anything to say on this. Like it's one of those songs that you will fully hold a different meaning to it if you've experienced this. And it like, I can only speak on it so much, but it is like, all I can say is kind of what's been said. So
Yeah.
it just says here, describes the concept of emotionally hurting someone as if it were physical harm through shards of glass. The imagery of broken glass and holding it to your throat conveys a sense of danger, vulnerability, and a potential for harm within your relationship. And Lizzie didn't have too much to say about it. She just said, I played this one on my last tour. The original version was done. I love this song so much, and I think it fits perfectly in the spot of the album. It's just really dark. So she doesn't go too much into it. But yeah, that's like it is. This is like, this is the toxic side of the album, and this is like the songs. There is like really toxic and dark songs, and then some are like toxic but not this dark. And I don't know, it's like a really good. I love the position of it positioning of it on the album, and yeah,
same.
It's just, it hits really hard. I like the intro to it.
Yeah, me too. It's nice. The next track is "You Force Me To," which again is quite like heavy lyrically. I think it really just like perpetuates some of the similar topics of the previous track, which I think it talks a lot about like the way she was being manipulated in the relationship. And I think production wise, I really like this song. I like the piano and like the little instrumentals. It feels like it fits. It's just I don't have much to say, but I did notice, I'm just looking at it on Genius and I didn't know, but this is like self-produced by Lizzie, and like I think that like this feels like such a personal song for her, so it makes sense it's like self-written, self-produced. That's like absolutely incredible. Not a lot of artists do that, and it's an incredible song, so it's something she should definitely be proud of.
Sorry, I just heard whistling outside my window. That was really creepy.
Oh, interesting.
Sorry. Yeah, so you said about it being self-produced. And I thought you were going to steal my note off me. I was going to be really sad.
No.
But so the reason this is because she said, I wrote this song during a recording session when I stepped outside to take a break. I went home that night and recorded it on my laptop, and that's what you hear. We didn't re-record anything. When I went to the band and I played them this demo, they were like, that's it. We don't need to do anything. And Mason Stoops, in particular, he's our guitar player and kind of the leader of the band. He was adamant about me being the only person credited. So like, yeah, it's beautiful that this is like, I'm guessing they've not reworked it at all. So this is like the original demo is what we're hearing here, which is crazy.
You can tell, like,
fully.
You can tell like it's not like super overproduced, but like it fits the song because like she really wants you to focus on what she's saying in this track, I think. And like I also like this track in particular could be interpreted in a few ways. Like it's definitely a manipulation track. Some of the lyrics could be interpreted in a way like the first few lyrics of like, you're on top of me and I'm under you and it never stops, I'm guilty, aren't you? It could be interpreted in like a way of like sexual assault. And I think it's really important, and in a like really challenging topic like this, and it's something that Lizzie has gone through with like a relationship and abuse, to have her tell her story in her own way, in her own words and her own production in this track is like, it feels really important.
I think like obviously there's not a lot on this, like she's not said a lot of this, but
it's probably quite personal too. Like I can imagine why she hasn't said anything. And I think like this track is, like I said, it's about a manipulation in a relationship, but it can be interpreted in so many different ways, and that's also what makes it special, that like people who are going through shit like this, like they can interpret it in their own way and find like some solace in that, and that's important.
And I think it just makes it more beautiful, the fact that this is self-produced. This is like her telling her like a story of like how a story this like kind of deep and like meaningful is like something that's really cool, that this is self-produced.
Yeah. So the next track that we have to talk about is the title track. It's Older. This song, I really like this song. Again, we're like still talking through things in this relationship, but like she has more of a reflective look now. I feel like that's kind of changed. Like she's almost recognizing how awful it was, and like the lyrics that when she's like thought it'd be over by now, thought you would leave, thought I would come to my senses, which I was stronger somehow. It's like she's reflecting, like, you know, just how much shit she's gone through, and she's getting older, and this shit is still happening, and she needs to like end that cycle. So it's almost like a self-realization track, and I think to choose this as the title track is like so perfect because it is that self-realization moment. And it almost to me has like a double meaning. Like the way she talks about older, like obviously the name of this track in the song is like mom's getting older, I'm wanting it back. She's talking about time passing. But I think also like in terms of the album as a whole, this is like a experience that changed her, and she's like emotionally matured and is older now because of it. And so it goes both ways, and I think it's like the perfect song to be the title track for this album.
I think it's really cool as well because like when we speak about Lizzie in our previous albums, and she also feels like, I feel like age and time comes into like everything she does in terms of like how she feels about her music and stuff. So I think it's quite interesting to have a song like this. Like, I mean, everybody can relate to the feeling of being like, to transitioning into adulthood and everything while also missing their youth. But I think like the way Lizzie speaks about age and stuff, and like how she feels it like through as she's grown, how like, things have changed and how she doesn't relate to as much of like her previous projects and stuff. I think age is always something that's kind of, it's like something that's a constant theme in with like as well as her growth and everything. So I don't know, I think that's kind of interesting to have this be the title track, and like the sort of this be the name behind the album, because it relates to like how she feels. But
yeah,
again, we've had a wee bit more. This is like the first single, so there's been a lot more time to process this and everything than really anything else. But I think just this was a beautiful like first like single to drop, and obviously it's a really good title track, and like sonically, like it's just a simple like piano like ballad, but it does a really good job. I think this gave a perfect look into what the album is going to be, and standalone it does a really good job at that, but it's also with the album it does a really good job at like combining the rest of the album. And it's also like a really like kind of nice like escape from the previous 3 songs that is like still a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing, but it's like still like a heavy topic, but it's also done in like a lighter way. Like it's not heavily produced, it's like a light piano, and it's like kind of sung a wee bit softer, and it just kind of takes you out of that like darker, like,
you know, it's not overly produced like you said, but it doesn't feel like it's missing anything.
Yeah.
Whereas there are some tracks on this album, which I talked about earlier, that like they aren't overly produced but feel like they're missing something, and I think it's just like that's what makes it better and like good.
Yeah, that nothing else to say other than her quote.
Sorry,
the song,
I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you I can't like say words and you do it so like perfectly, so do that all you want, honestly. The song changed everything for me. I had the first verse and chorus written in a voice memo that I'd kind of forgotten about, because my first producer thought it might be too Disney, but when I played it for Mason and Taylor, They were immediately like, no, this is amazing. The only issue was that I didn't know how to finish it. Since by the time we revisited it, I was so far removed from the intensity of that breakup, they suggested I write about where I am now. Doing that tied the whole song together for me and cemented the album's entire concept and unlocked everything. We finished the song in 20 minutes, did 3 takes, used the third one, and never looked back. Here, whoever this like first producer was, they were. This is the like third song that they've like.
So okay, I was gonna ask you about this. So like, let me see if I can actually find the exact name of the guy, but like there's one person who's like credited on like pretty much every single one of her her older tracks from like 5 Seconds Flat and like Give Me a Minute.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm assuming that's who she's talking about, but this one guy who's like on every single one of her older tracks is nowhere to be seen. Yeah, Philip on this record. I assume that's who they're talking about. I don't know.
Because like surely if he's been featured in every single other one of her, like pretty much not all of them, but most of their projects, like it's such a different and a weird understanding that like maybe this was just like tonally not like what he was feeling, and he maybe just this is where he's like this is why he's not on this project, and like
I think
shut down these ideas, not these ideas, but like maybe just don't think it was shut down, but maybe just like didn't see the idea, the concept as much as Lizzie did. But that's an interesting point because I mentioned that in our like the track thing we did the other day. Like he does pretty much most of Lizzie's old stuff, and I'm pretty sure it's like genuinely like a large portion of them. So I wonder if that was who it was, or if it was someone else. But I can't, now that you've brought that up, I don't know who else it could really be. But
I mean, we're not here to like
speculate, yeah,
gossip or speculate, but like I assume that it probably is, and I think I can kind of get it. I mean, this like if this album is like a really big step away from like conceptually from what she usually does, like it could not have been his style, and like she may have been coming to him with ideas and he was pushing back because it's not the style he usually works with or whatever, and so she went to someone else. And I would hope that it's not like a malice kind of thing, but we don't know the whole situation. And anyway, we're getting off track.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the next track, which is Better Than This. You talk about this track first, and I'll say after.
Okay, gosh. This is, I don't know, because I try and put it into like where this is on the album, and it transitions from older, and so this is obviously a lot of these songs were like done a while ago, and they've been updated for this, potentially for this album, or just I think with a band involved. So again, I'd love to see sort of where this like started, because like her singing on this is like beautiful, but it always is. But I just I don't know, it's like I don't know where to place this album, this song.
I have like the complete same opinion as you, and that's why I wanted you to go first, because I didn't want to like start negatively.
Yeah.
But like I'm kind of glad that you had the same opinion as me. Like this is again one of those tracks, and like I keep coming back to this, but I just feel like this is the reason why this album is not 10 out of 10 for me. Again, like it just feels it lyrically it's really nice. I think it fits well lyrically, and like I love her voice and like all of that, but it just feels unfinished somehow. And like the guitar on it, like it's very simple guitar. And I think it like almost reminds me a little bit of her past work, which was like less understood, and I want to know if it's like intentional. Maybe like that this is less produced to like draw more attention to the lyrics, but I like with older where it's like piano, it's like a piano ballad almost, and it felt like very intentional. This feels kind of just weird and out of place. And maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but it's just the way I feel.
See, like, I think I'd say it's finished. It's just like in terms of where it's placed and the is for me is like, because obviously she speaks about placing all of these like on purpose in places. It's just like, because obviously the song's about like describing how she's like scared for someone to like love her better than her like partner, but like it's just
I think it's describing like the fear of leaving a manipulative relationship. So I think the placement is okay in that sense because she just like described all the manipulation, and she just had that realization moment in older, and now she wants to leave, but she's like having this fear, which is normal. Like the part where she's like, I like, what if I'm not a good person? You always say that I am, but you don't really know me at all now. I think that I'm not who you think I am, but I like to be seen and I like to be wanted. Want it to mean something. She's like, it's almost going back to what we talked about in Movie Star. And now that she has this realization of the manipulation, instead she's still looking back on those ideas that she talked about in Movie Star, when she can't let go of them, which means she can't let go of the relationship, but she's trying. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's also like because of like the chorus of like, what if I'm not a good person? You always say that I am. It's this whole like she's been built up so much and like been told so many lies by this person that she doesn't know like who she'll be without them is what I'm getting. And you know what? This is why I kind of like doing album breakdowns, because I don't think sometimes even when you go into it, but it's like when you speak to it about someone and like open it up more, you get a better understanding of it. And I think it's, and originally I just felt like I just didn't know why it was placed here, but with the conversation we've just had, I understand. And I also don't like, I think it fits. Like if I was to, I don't know, because I'd say it was lyrically and sonically finished. I'd say it was like, I like the fact that it's stripped back, because I think when you're talking about the topic of fear, you usually have,
to me, like, fear is like all encompassing. It should be more heavily produced.
Yeah.
But maybe like, so it's a, to me, like, I understand that it's probably a choice that it's underproduced, but it doesn't make sense. And like, I think that's my opinion. I think Lizzie obviously had a reason to do that, and I'm realizing, like, as we're talking to this album, that like every single choice was very intentional, and like I'm just so curious what her reason was. But if we don't have an answer on that, then that's okay. But yeah,
we don't. But she, like, I think the part of I'm taking it from it is because obviously because we're talking about how fear is obviously all encompassing, right? Like fear is like that. So usually songs that are about fear are like so like busy and everything like that. But the rest of the album has also been like that in places. So it makes me think, is like, because she's steering away from the norm, is this how she's representing fear in this, because of how like heavily produced the rest of the album has been? That's what she's known, like that's what she knows in this like sort of relationship or anything. So the fact that it's like stripped back is like a different vibe, and it's like the complete opposite. So this is like how fear's being perceived in this. But obviously that's just like a thought, but like I don't know, that like I feel like there's so much more digging that could be done into this. But all she said about this was, I knew I wanted to update the song from the original version so that the band and I did a bunch of live takes That was generally our process throughout. We'd do a bunch of live takes, pick one, and then pepper stuff on top of it. I loved the thought that the core. I loved that the core of the album was live recordings, everyone huddled in a room. It felt like that was the only way to approach this project, and this song in particular. So that's literally all she said. So she didn't say anything about it. So this one's down to like us, I guess, to like to
interpret it.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
Okay, well, interesting. In the interest of time, we should move on to the next track. March.
Oh my god, we've been at this for an hour and 10 minutes.
I know.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Sorry, people.
We love to talk. That's why we're podcasters.
So true.
The next track is March. It's track 13. This song is about her late father, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And I think this is like an incredible song. Like the piano in it really makes you feel it. And like how her vocals are so soft, like it makes you really feel the emotions that she's feeling. And yeah, no notes. I love this song. It's really good.
I have notes, not notes, but I have just something about why it's titled March and like everything and the story behind her dad and everything. So March is the 13th track of the album. Similarly to the 13th tracks from her previous albums. It discusses her late father, Mark McAlpine, who passed away on March 13th, 2020. The song carries imagery reminiscent of the album cover photo shoot taken at a lake in the rocks. The song is one of the three about her dad after the 2020 track, Headstones and Landmines, and the 2022 track, Chemtrails. Interestingly, each song about her dad has imagery of a different element. Headstones and landmines being earth, chemtrails being air, and March being water. This may or may not have been intentional. She says, "This song is about my dad who passed away in 2020. Every 13th track on my albums is about him. He passed away on the 13th of March, and my first album came out on the 13th, and there were 13 tracks, and the 13th track was about him. I didn't really plan that, but it created a tradition. I don't really write about my dad with anyone because it's just really heavy and personal, but I wrote this song with singer and composer Ethan, who made me feel safe and open. Recording it was amazing. It feels so warm. When the band comes in, it's a hug for your ears." I'm about to start crying. I don't know, I think it's really, really fun when you see an artist have like a specific track mean a certain thing, and we obviously have it with like Taylor. Every track 5 is a sad song, and
yeah,
I don't know, it's really special when there's a meaning behind it. And obviously her dad is someone she speaks about a lot in her music, and when she does, it's like forever. Like it just means obviously a lot to her, and it always hits a lot harder. I really like a connotation from someone who said, or an annotation. I keep doing that. An annotation. The imagery of, so this was on the first verse. Throw a rock in the water, watched it sink down to the bottom. Trying to find the lesson in it all, but I haven't learned anything. Someone said the imagery of throwing a rock in the water, watching it sink, reflects a sense of searching for meaning and understanding in life's experiences, yet feeling like lessons remain elusive. I just think that was really, really, really interesting. But yeah, I don't think there's a lot to say. This song is, the way it's written, stunning, sound stunning, and I think it just comes together to make like a really beautiful like track 13.
Yeah, I think it's so nice that she has that tribute to her dad on every single album, and it's such a nice thing. And this song is really good. Yeah.
On to your favorite.
Yeah, on to my favorite. Jack, spoilers. Oh, God.
Sorry.
No, so this track is the last track on the album, track 14, and this is, like Jack said, it's my favorite track on the album. It is a long song compared to some of the really, really short songs that I complained about on the album, which this song is almost 6 minutes long, and it is what I would describe as the perfect album closer. From a production standpoint, from a lyrical standpoint, it closes every single like aspect of the story that you have been that we've been following through the album, I think the last lyric is like so powerful. It starts with like a very slow, it's like there's like an instrumental build through this track, and I think it's like Lizzie coming to the realization of this is not my fault, is like how she starts, and then she goes through this process and she's letting this situation go, and as the instrumental builds, and that's like the beautiful, like the most beautiful thing to happen, right? Like that feeling of like I'm free of this like horrible thing that happened to me. And the very last lyric where she says, someday you'll come back, someday I'll be able to let you go, someday you'll come back and I will say no. And I think that's like the almost the perfect way to end this story. And then like the instrumental break at the end, and it really builds into like almost the loudest moment of the album, like this really loud instrumental near the end, and it's like this perfect imagery that you get from this track. I don't know how to describe it in more of a way than that, but like this is like musical genius. I like, if you are going to listen to any song of this album, listen to this one because it is incredible.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just like listening to you to describe it. It's it had a. I think the album has a really perfect opener, and I don't think there could be another perfect closer done in a different way. Like the way this is done, how it's done is beautiful. And you say like it gets like louder and like more, like it feels like it's encompassing you, like it feels like it's coming over you.
But you know, like we talked about the instrumental in the previous track in Staying, where it was like it felt like you were spinning.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like very similar, like in terms of the instrumental making you feel something, but like the way that the sounds are, like you literally feel like you're floating and like you're letting things go. Like I genuinely think that hearing this song live, and I hope that she plays it live, would be like a religious experience in terms of if you had any shit going on in your life, like you would hear this instrumental live and like you would almost feel free of it. Like that is how powerful it is.
Like this would be, I know artists really like to do their encores and like with their most popular songs and stuff, but I would so take having no encore and this just being the last track of the set list, like going off with this like feeling, and then like at the end they just walk off, or like they just walk off mid, like near the end of it, and it just, that's it. Like that would be, I think it's a perfect closer for like anything you do. I don't know, it's, and it flows back into the start of the album really well as well. Again, I don't have a lot to say about this. I feel like that's been a lot for me, but I think a lot of the times with Lizzie's writing, all I can say is like depending on what it's about and like how it's been done, it's like it's done really well, or there's just so much to it that I've still yet to understand, and I'm like, I really like to go back and listen to her songs and try and take new interpretations from it, and I think she's really good at that, but she's also good at giving like a definitive like storyline, which was seen through this album, and this has like obviously been no exception. I'll just finish on like notes that were given for about the song and what she said about it, and this just the whole description of it is, it describes a feeling of uncertainty that someday she'll be able to escape this seemingly never-ending cycle of a relationship. She may not be ready now, but soon she will muster the strength to let go. And I think there's something more interesting to say about how the fact it loops really perfectly back into the start of that album again, because is it trying to play into the whole fact that this is like never ending, like it says here, like obviously like it is, like that's the whole thing. It's like it's a constant cycle of like abuse and like just bad relationships, like relationship, and it's like looping back into the album. It definitely is like a choice, so it's like interesting to have that at the album, because it kind of gives you that thoughts of like, is she like, when is she going to be ready to go? Because she may not be ready now, but like, when is the time? Like, is this like, you sort of get the hopes up that this is it, and then it jumps back into it, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe that wasn't it, which is interesting. I don't, that definitely was purposeful probably, but it's just interesting to hear it with like that context in mind. And I feel like we've been talking forever, but she says the song was supposed to be the title of the album for so long, but again it felt like tunnel vision, that this album is ultimately about so much more than a breakup, but I still thought it was a perfect way to end the project. I love that the lyrics are forward facing and hopeful, like someday I will be strong enough to say no to you, or someday I'll be strong enough to let this go. The gist is I may not be there yet, but I know I will be. Which is, yeah,
I love it. I absolutely love that, and I love this album. I just, like, as a retrospective, I think this album is, I didn't have high expectations going into it, not gonna lie, just because, and I almost felt that when I first listened to it. I think I liked it more in a second listen. I think that mainly comes from a place of, like, the abusive relationship thing is not something that, like, I personally relate to, so I wasn't expecting that story, and then going into it a second time, like, understanding the context of what's about to happen and in the story and, like, all of those things, it helps you, like, absorb it more the second listen, I think, and made me like it better. And then I also think I also really think that like, a few of the tracks I mentioned, like, there were some interesting production decisions. I think, like, the most frustrating thing was, like, some of the songs didn't feel fleshed out enough for me personally. Like, specifically, I think Movie Star was, like, the biggest one. But it's nice to know that, like you mentioned a bunch of, like, things that Lizzie has said about it, Jack, and that helped me, like, understand those production choices a little bit more. So I feel like almost after this discussion, my album ranking has gone up. I think overall, like, it's an incredible album. I don't know, for me, like, it's not going to be, like, a playlist album. Like, I'm not going to add these songs to my playlist because they're almost too heavy to be, like, playlist songs. But they're, like, songs that you can come back to. And I think Vortex is probably a song that I will come back to for sure. The rest I might come back to from time to time, but yeah, that's how I feel about the album. Doesn't mean I think it's bad. I think it's an incredible album. I think it's an incredible work of art. Like, as a whole, it tells a really good story. The production is incredible. The lyricism is incredible. That's how I feel.
Out
how about
of 10.
You, out of 10. Oh. 7.6.
Okay. Valid. Okay. My overall thoughts is, I just need to run into this quickly with a wee bit of, like, context of what the album is.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just quickly read that. The album took 3 years to get right. I only got it right because me and Mason and Taylor and Libro and Sam and Ted and Richard. This is how she wrote it, by the way. I'm just resting off. Nuther and Jesse all sat in a room for 2 weeks and figured it out how to get it right. Then Mason and Taylor and Jesse and I sat in that room for 2 more weeks and made sure that it was right. Those few weeks were hard and fun, and also a turning point for this record. The song Older specifically was the moment it all started to come together in my head. For now, I hope you know that I did not compromise. I was very stressed out the whole time, but I think we got somewhere really cool in the end. Making and promoting art feels very strange right now, but I hope you can find some comfort in what we've made. Again, they only came up with a set list, and finally, I think it was like a week and a half before it came out. So they were fully, like, working on this. They only got the record out for pre-order, I think, like, a couple days before it came out. Like, she's someone who's not super obsessed with, like, making a ton of money in this industry and, like, charting and everything. Like, she just is making art, and I think that's seen here. Like, it's obviously hard, but, like, a lot of, like, people are trying to push albums out as soon as they possibly can to then get these, like, record pre-orders and everything in order, but I think it's about the art, and that's what's seen here. It was hard, and we made me want. I can't. It was hard and made me want to give up a lot, but I didn't, and we made it. Thank God for that. We captured something really special, and my goal with the record and rollout was not to get in the way of the music, and the only thing that matters, obviously, is the music at the end. A project that is a real and more raw reflection of what it being an artist is. Mistakes will end up in the recording, but it also was to pretty much originally just be like a real raw and like better look at like the production of an album, and I think it does a really good job at that.
I think it's interesting, and I like it. I think you're so right. Like the track that feels like You Forced Me To, which was like more of a demo, and I think that you just talking through this record with you makes me understand how she was trying to display the different process of writing music through this record. And I think if you have that context, this album becomes a lot better than it initially seems.
Yeah, I think it's been a really eye-opening thing to look through the album with someone, because we've came to a different understanding of some songs, and sort of came to an agreement of others and everything, and I think that's special. I don't know, it's helped look at it in a different way, which I'm really appreciative for. Ultimately, this, I think, sonically, what it conveys, the heartbreaking and raw, and really the masterfulness and of the production, the music, the vocals, and the layering and the harmonies and everything that goes into this album, the topics, the story, the writing. I don't think it's 100% our best lyrically in terms of going. So I went back to listen to 5 seconds flat, when we were doing this, before we done this, and I still believe that, while I think that 5 seconds flat is incredible and this is incredible, I think a combination of both are her top tier of lyric and lyricism. So I don't think this is 100% her. I'd say 50-50. I think that it comes very there's so much done on 5 seconds flat that's incredible, and there's so much done on this that's incredible. But I'm really here and stand with her when she says that she's so disconnected from who she was at that time, and from that music she made, that this is how she feels and how she's conveyed it now, and she's done that to such a beautiful state. And
I think it makes sense, and I think people are upset about that, but I think after hearing this album, hearing the topics discussed and hearing the way that it sounds, I think you can see why, and you can see how she's different. And I think that's important and really good to reflect in her music, and I'm glad that people are supporting her through that.
Yeah, I just.
So what do you give this album out of 10, Jack? You have to give it a ranking too.
Yeah, ultimately it's oh, this is so tough. It's low nines. I'd say
low 9. Okay.
9. I think 9 point. I'm really stuck between 2 and 3. I think
this is not a science. It doesn't matter that much.
I'm gonna stick it down. I'm gonna say 9.3, and I am coming at this as a fan, but I think genuinely from what she's done here, and from someone who's believed in her music and who's witnessed every single thing she's released and how much she's grown as an artist, I think this project is genuinely stunning, and I think it's beautiful. The production just blows me away, and the lyricism, and it might not be the strongest at some points, but the imagery created in this album is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to our album breakdown. If you made it this far, wow, thank you. Like, actually. Um, if you like these kind of album breakdowns where we chat shit and talk through everything about every single track, make sure to subscribe. We'll be doing the same for future albums that come out from all your favorite artists. We'll be doing one for Tortured Poets next week, so I know you might be waiting for that, but it is coming. And yeah, make sure to subscribe, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Look after yourself.
Bye.
Bye.